Sometimes a person can act completely indifferent while their behavior quietly tells a different story. They may hide their feelings, avoid showing vulnerability, or pretend that nothing matters to them. But genuine emotions often reveal themselves through small, repeated patterns that are difficult to control. In this speech, we'll uncover 5 signs that can help you understand when someone's apparent lack of interest may actually be something much deeper, and why their actions deserve more attention than their words. Sometimes the clearest way to understand whether someone truly cares is to stop doing all the emotional work yourself. Not as a manipulation, not as a game, and definitely not to punish her, but simply to create enough space for her natural behavior to become visible. When you are constantly initiating conversations, checking in, making plans, sending messages, and keeping the connection alive, you may never know whether she is genuinely interested or simply responding because you are always there. But when you become a little less available and allow the interaction to breathe, you start noticing what happens without your constant effort. If she genuinely values your presence, your absence may become noticeable. She might ask where you have been, wonder why you are quieter, or find a small reason to start a conversation. Maybe she suddenly becomes more attentive when you are around, or she starts making an effort that you were previously making alone. These reactions do not automatically mean that she has romantic feelings, but they can show that your presence has emotional significance to her. The important thing is to observe the pattern instead of becoming obsessed with one particular reaction. There is a major difference between giving someone space and intentionally creating jealousy. You do not need to post things just to make her jealous. You do not need to pretend that you are suddenly surrounded by other people. You do not need to disappear for days simply to make her chase you. That is not emotional maturity. Real confidence means you continue living your life while allowing the other person to decide whether they want to participate in it. You stop forcing the connection and start observing whether the connection can exist naturally. And sometimes, when you stop chasing, you discover something very important. You discover whether she was actually meeting you halfway. Because when someone values a connection, they usually find some way to contribute to it. They may not text constantly, they may not express emotions perfectly, they may even have moments where they become distant, but over time there should be some evidence of mutual effort. She may initiate conversations, remember things about you, check on you, or create opportunities to spend time together. Those small actions can speak louder than dramatic words because they require genuine attention. The most powerful thing you can do is stop trying to convince someone to care. Give her enough freedom to show you what she naturally chooses. If she reaches out, pay attention to the quality of that effort. If she makes time for you, notice whether that effort continues. If she becomes more curious about your life when you stop constantly explaining yourself, notice the pattern. You are not trying to control her emotions. You are simply removing the pressure that may have been hiding the truth about how much effort she is willing to make. One of the quietest signs that someone may care more than they admit is what they remember about you. People hear countless conversations every day, but they do not remember every detail from every person. When someone remembers the small things you casually mentioned, it can show that your words actually stayed with them. She might remember your favorite food, something you were worried about, an important goal you once mentioned, a story from your childhood, or even something you said weeks ago that you assumed she had completely forgotten. These details may seem insignificant, but sometimes attention reveals what words try to hide. Think about how different it feels when someone remembers something without being reminded. You might casually mention that you had an important meeting coming up, and later she asks how it went. You might tell her about something you were planning to accomplish, and months later she brings it up again. Maybe you once mentioned that you dislike a certain thing, and she quietly remembers it when making a decision involving you. These moments can reveal that she was listening more carefully than she wanted you to realize. Someone can act completely casual on the surface while still storing away little pieces of information about you. But you have to understand something important. Remembering details does not automatically mean someone is romantically interested. Some people are naturally attentive, caring, and emotionally intelligent. The real clue is the pattern. Does she remember things specifically about you while behaving as though she does not care? Does she notice changes in your mood? Does she remember conversations that seemed unimportant? Does she bring up things you mentioned only once? When several of these behaviors appear together, they become more meaningful because they show consistent attention rather than one accidental memory. Sometimes a person remembers because they have emotionally invested in understanding you. They notice your reactions, your preferences, your habits, and the things that make you different from everyone else. They may never announce that they have been paying attention because admitting that would reveal vulnerability. Instead, their memory quietly exposes the level of attention they have been giving you. You may think she was not listening because she looked distracted during a conversation, and then suddenly she mentions a tiny detail from that same conversation weeks later, showing that she heard much more than you thought. This is why you should stop focusing only on what she says and start observing what she consistently notices. Words can be controlled. Someone can say, "I don't care," while their behavior continues to demonstrate awareness. But remembering requires attention, and repeated attention usually comes from somewhere. If she consistently remembers the little things that matter to you, notices details others overlook, and brings those details back into conversations naturally, you may be seeing a side of her feelings that she is not comfortable expressing directly, especially when those memories are connected to your emotions, your goals, your preferences, and the moments she seems to hold on to even when she pretends they meant nothing to her. One of the most revealing signs can be the way her behavior changes when you are around. A person can say that nothing matters, act completely relaxed, and pretend that your presence has no effect on them, but behavior is often much harder to control. Pay attention to whether she becomes noticeably different when you enter the room or join the conversation. Maybe she suddenly becomes quieter, more talkative, more playful, more nervous, or unusually conscious of how she looks and sounds. The change itself is what matters because people rarely become completely different around someone who has absolutely no emotional impact on them. Think about how naturally people behave around those they feel completely comfortable with. There is usually no pressure to impress, no need to monitor every word, and no sudden shift in energy. But when someone matters emotionally, even a confident person can become unexpectedly self-conscious. She might adjust her appearance, change the way she speaks, become more aware of your reactions, or suddenly care about whether you approve of what she is saying. Sometimes she may even act colder than usual because she is trying so hard not to reveal that she is affected. This is where people often become confused. They see the distance and immediately assume it means disinterest. But distance alone does not tell the entire story. You have to look at the contrast. How does she behave with everyone else compared with how she behaves around you? Is she naturally expressive with others but unusually guarded with you? Is she comfortable joking with everyone but suddenly careful around you? Does she seem unaffected when you are absent but become noticeably different when you are present? These contrasts can tell you much more than one isolated moment. You may also notice that she pays unusual attention to your reactions. She might say something and immediately look at you to see how you responded. She may become more energetic when you give her attention and quieter when you withdraw it. She may notice who you are talking to, what mood you are in, or whether something has changed about you. Again, none of these behaviors should be treated as undeniable proof of romantic feelings. People behave differently for many reasons, But when several patterns repeatedly appear around the same person, they deserve to be noticed. The biggest mistake is confronting her with every little observation and demanding an explanation. That creates pressure and can destroy the natural behavior you are trying to understand. Instead, remain calm. Observe without interrogating. Let time reveal whether the pattern is consistent. Genuine emotions tend to create repeated behaviors, while random moments disappear quickly. If she continually becomes more aware, more nervous, more attentive, or more emotionally reactive around you, then there may be something beneath the surface that she is struggling to express, especially when her behavior around you remains noticeably different from the way she naturally behaves with everyone else. Sometimes the strongest signs of emotional interest are not dramatic confessions or obvious gestures. They are the small reasons someone creates to remain connected to you. She may send a random message, ask a question she could easily answer herself, share something that reminded her of you, or continue a conversation even after the original topic has completely ended. On the surface, these moments may look ordinary, but when they happen repeatedly, they can reveal that she simply does not want the connection to disappear. She may not say that she wants your attention, but she keeps finding little ways to stay within your world. Think about the difference between someone who communicates only when necessary and someone who consistently creates unnecessary opportunities to talk. If every interaction has a clear purpose, there may be nothing deeper happening. But if she repeatedly starts conversations without having anything important to discuss, that can be meaningful. Maybe she sends you a funny video because she knows you will understand the joke. Maybe she asks for your opinion about something she could easily decide herself. Maybe she remembers an old conversation and brings it up weeks later. These little actions can suggest that communication with you has become something she enjoys and values. Sometimes people do not realize how transparent these habits can become. A person may tell herself that she is simply being casual, yet her behavior continues to bring her back to the same connection. She may not want to appear overly interested, so instead of saying, "I wanted to talk to you," she finds another reason. Instead of saying, "I missed our conversation," she sends something random. Instead of directly asking to spend time together, she casually mentions a place, activity, or situation where you could naturally meet. The words may sound casual, but the repeated effort can tell a different story. However, you have to be careful not to turn every message into evidence of hidden feelings. Not every conversation means attraction. Some people are naturally friendly, social, and communicative. The important question is whether she consistently invests more attention in you than she does in ordinary connections. Does she remember your conversations? Does she initiate contact even when you stop doing it? Does she make an effort to keep conversations alive? Does she seem disappointed when communication suddenly becomes distant? When these behaviors repeatedly appear together, the overall pattern becomes much more meaningful. And this is where your response matters. Do not reward uncertainty with endless chasing. If she reaches out, meet her effort with healthy effort, but do not carry the entire relationship yourself. Give the connection room to become mutual. If she genuinely wants you in her life, she will eventually demonstrate that through consistency. You should not have to manufacture reasons for her to care, and you should not have to constantly remind someone that you exist. Let her choices speak. When someone repeatedly finds small reasons to stay connected, even while pretending that the connection does not matter, those small efforts may reveal an emotional attachment that she is not yet ready to express openly, especially when she keeps returning without you having to pull her back every time. The final sign is often the one that creates the most confusion. Her actions repeatedly contradict her words. She might tell you that she does not care, yet somehow she notices when your mood changes. She may act distant, yet she still checks whether you are okay. She might insist that your absence makes no difference, but then find a reason to reconnect after you stop giving her constant attention. When words and behavior repeatedly move in opposite directions, it becomes important to look at the complete pattern instead of becoming attached to one statement or one moment. People sometimes say things that protect them emotionally. Admitting that someone matters can make a person feel vulnerable, especially if they are afraid of rejection, disappointment, or losing control. So instead of expressing what they genuinely feel, they may create distance and convince themselves that they do not care. They might become colder, less responsive, or unusually guarded, but emotions can still appear through behavior. They may remember small details, notice your absence, react to changes in your attention, or become unusually interested in what is happening in your life. But there is an important distinction here. You should never automatically assume that actions are more important than someone's direct words. If she clearly tells you that she is not interested, you should respect that boundary. The purpose of observing behavior is not to convince yourself that her words are meaningless. It is to understand whether there is a genuine contradiction that deserves calm communication. Sometimes actions are misunderstood, and sometimes people are simply friendly or caring without having romantic intentions. Emotional maturity means being willing to accept either possibility. What matters most is consistency. One caring message does not erase weeks of distance. One moment of jealousy does not prove deep feelings. One unexpected conversation does not establish a relationship. Look at what happens repeatedly over time. Does she consistently make an effort? Does she initiate contact? Does she care about how you are doing? Does she create opportunities to spend time together? Does she show concern when you pull away? Does she treat you differently from other people in her life? When several behaviors continue together, the pattern becomes more informative than any isolated action. And if you notice a contradiction, do not respond by becoming more desperate. Do not chase harder. Do not interrogate her about every little thing she does. Do not try to manipulate her into revealing feelings. Instead, remain grounded. Let her behavior unfold naturally while you maintain your own standards. You deserve a connection where interest does not require endless guessing and where affection does not have to be extracted through emotional pressure. Sometimes clarity comes when you stop trying to decode someone and start observing what they consistently choose. If she cares, her choices will eventually become visible through genuine effort, attention, and consistency. If she does not, accepting that reality will save you from spending months creating explanations for behavior that may have a much simpler meaning. The goal is not to prove that she secretly has feelings. The goal is to understand whether her actions demonstrate enough mutual interest, respect, and consistency for you to continue investing emotionally, especially when her behavior continues revealing something different from the image of complete indifference that she tries to present to the outside world.